Well, hi there. Welcome to the Food and Movies podcast, where we examine the intersection between food and movies. We tell jokes, we overanalyze things, sometimes we argue, most times we agree. And basically we just kind of analyze a movie from a perspective of food. So we go meal by meal, food mention by food mention, and we really kind of dissect movies based on the food within. Paul, what movie are we doing today? Paul's the host. I'm just kind of subbing in for fun just to mix it up a little.
Well, Jer, I'm glad you asked that. We have got a special food movie today. It is a seminal movie in the food movie genre, The Menu.
Seminal or seminal?
Seminal, yes,
seminal.
Yes,
Okay.
it is seminal. True,
Yeah.
true, absolutely. But this is one of, I guess we can say that Big Night kind of started the food movie genre.
Right.
Intentionally or unintentionally, that movie started the food movie genre. But this movie, you can tell, was written specifically for the genre. It was their intention to begin with. It's called The Menu, and they probably figured out a way they wanted to make it about food and work backwards from that. So The Menu is the movie.
It started with food, and they worked backwards. It has a lot of... I didn't hate it as much as Burnt, but Burnt was a movie where they started with the guy and the food and worked backwards from there. This is a different beast, but you're right. It felt like they crafted the food and they had a kind of a concept, and then they kind of just backfilled from there with regards to story.
Yeah, they did. Well, do we want to talk? We just want to go into our initial thoughts. Go ahead. What were your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts were...
sorry. By the way, for the viewers, the format of the show is initial thoughts, then we go over each instance of food chronologically and crack wise about them, end with food awards and final thoughts. So go ahead, Jer. Initial thoughts.
It felt like an episode of The Chef's Table, which I think was intentional.
The director of The Chef's Table was the second unit guy on this, doing all the food stuff. Right,
and the type, even the art direction, like the typeface,
music,
the way the music was, the way they shot things, it all kind of felt very much like an episode of The Chef's Table. And one of the characters there, the guy who's like the foodie, he makes reference to it as well. So clearly they did that intentionally. That was by design. A lot of stuff in this movie was by design. Stylish film, very stylish film. Yeah. Good cast. I had no issues with the cast, and you know what? It's funny because we've recently talked about Triangle of Sadness. That's coming up soon, and it shared some themes with Triangle of Sadness as well. In a weird way. I was thinking
the same thing,
and you and I will definitely dive into that.
Also, Glass Onion. I feel those three films all are kind of doing the same thing. So
yeah, they all kind of come at it from a very different way, but they're all three comedies. This is a very very dark comedy, but it did have its humorous moments, and we'll get into those because they do kind of fall around the food and the acts of savage violence that also occur. But I enjoyed it, but all throughout while watching it, my mind was telling me you can't enjoy this because this is a blatant foodie movie. It's like Burnt, and like I went in with that expectation, and I came out being like, wow, I had a lot of fun with that.
I had no idea you were so conflicted about it while watching it like that. So did which side won? Was the one that was telling you don't fall for this, or did you fall for it? Did you get seduced by the food and the movie?
No, I got seduced in the end, but it was more than just the food kind of fell into the backdrop for me. Initially, it was like the food is the star, but you got as the menu progressed, the food kind of became the backdrop to the trauma that these people were experiencing, and the meal became them. Right? Like and that is by design. This film was designed that way. And they didn't hold back from telling us that that's what they were doing.
Right. By the way, spoilers ahead. We're just going to spoil the crap out of this movie. We're spoiling
the crap out of this movie. So go watch it now and then come back and watch this.
And then talk to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I immediately was thinking this is like Triangle of Sadness Part 2, or there's something in the air. Apparently, there are these movies that are coming out, Triangle of Sadness, Glass Onion, the Menu. There seems to be this undercurrent of like class warfare that's going on right now in movies. These movies are popping up for some reason, and I'm not sure. Maybe it is a sign of the times. I'm not sure, but they're expressing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with that. Continue.
Yeah, they seem to be expressing a lot of frustration with income inequality, specifically aimed at Silicon Valley, it seems like. There's a lot of that going along. And also these are kind of bottle movies. They all take place in one location for some reason. I'm not sure if that factors in at all, but for Knives Out, Glass Onion, that there is a trope of mystery movie where it's a murder in a English mansion. The road has been, taken out, and so you have all your suspects all in one place. That's a kind of structure for a murder mystery. And there's like, people do murder mystery parties and things like that. It's a convention at this point. And these movies kind of fall into that. Like Triangle of Sadness was on a cruise ship and then on a deserted island. So it was basically a bunch of characters all stuck in one place. And then they turn the temperature up over time and things start breaking and going haywire. So there is something, I think, in the zeitgeist right now, which is moving these movies forward. This one happened to be mixed in with food.
Right.
But I got to tell you, man, the food pornography in this movie.
Next level.
I've never seen anything like it in a movie before. I mean, my God. It was incredible. But truly incredible.
It was almost over the top.
Yeah, it might have been too much.
And I think, but once again, I think that was a carefully crafted thing to almost, to go back to your point about this is kind of in the zeitgeist. If you think about it, there's the Bernie Sanders, the 1%, that whole thing. And then there is Silicon Valley, which was just printing money for the longest time. Right now, it's getting a little sketchy, but and then Bitcoin, and we've seen in recent history a lot of wealth funneling up into these ultra rich people. And then what better way to be ultra rich but to eat this almost unnecessary meal? Like it's and he even Ralph Fiennes' character, he even states it. He's like, I don't want you to eat. Eating is beneath us. I want you to taste. You're tasting, which is like eating in its most pure and simple form is just getting sustenance, right? Mm-hmm. So by that logic, a cheeseburger is just as good as a scallop with demi-glace, caviar, whatever the hell else they throw on it. That probably is not going to be a good meal, but I was just trying to use fancy words.
I appreciate it.
But they both are going to accomplish the same thing. One is going to be like an experience. The other is a cheeseburger. But like for some people, that cheeseburger is delicious. And it's
this
great.
Guy.
We love cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the cheeseburger, if we jump back to Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah.
There was a theme there with Woody Harrelson's character, a man of the people. And then the character in this, I'm not going to jump ahead too much, and we'll get there when we get there. But the character in this has a cheeseburger for almost the same reason.
Yeah. I'm so glad that cheeseburgers are getting their moment as hero foods in this day and age. It's about time.
It's a delicious food.
It is a delicious food.
And there's something pornographic about a cheeseburger. It's dripping, it's sweating, it's melting, it's...
You got to eat with your hands. You got to
eat with your hands. It's an experience in and of itself. A good cheeseburger, if it's cooked right, I think can have the same effect as any of these overblown dishes that we see in this meal. And if you've been to any of these Michelin-starred, I'm assuming this Hawthorne would be a 3 Michelin-starred restaurant just because of the complete dedication that they're showing throughout the whole movie and all the little fine details that they're throwing into their food. If you've been to a restaurant like this, it's often that ridiculous. And you and I have talked about it. I went to one in Amsterdam where they brought me a little cake in a box with mirrors, and it was like, are you doing this for all your cakes, or did you build this box just for this cake, just so I could see it reflected in mirrors? I don't understand why you're doing this. The mirrors aren't making the food taste any better, but the presentation's there. And so what better way to show our opulence than eating this crap for $1,200 a head when you can have a cheeseburger for $6?
Yeah, I think it was based on, I believe there was some kind of Scandinavian chef who's famous for using the ingredients around his restaurant. Do you know this guy?
Yeah. His restaurant's closing in 2024, and you basically have to go out to the middle of nowhere like this. They've even made it more remote on an island, which I think was to serve the purpose of you can't escape. But then this guy, middle of nowhere, somewhere in Norway or something, or Finland, and it's all very much like he grows it around him, and they forage and they smoke the food there, and yeah, it's a direct culinary representation of the land on which the restaurant sits. So,
I like it. I like the idea. I mean,
I'm sure it's expensive.
Well, yeah, for something like that, there are people in the world who are willing to pay the price to travel there specifically. You're one of them.
Yeah, I will.
I mean, yeah, and why not? There should be places in the world that are like this, I think. Not that where you die, but, everything.
You know, I'd rather come out of it alive. But there are culinary experiences that, I mean, what's that? There's that fish, and they made fun of it in The Simpsons. The sushi, yeah, you could die eating it. You're putting your life at risk. Some people are actually willing to put their lives at risk for this type of experience, i.e., the character, the gentleman in the film who's the foodie. I forget his name now. It's
Tyler.
Although he seems very like tunnel vision focused on that, and then thusly brings a prostitute with him. All right.
Well, you mentioned dying for food, dying for a culinary experience. Fugue, by the way.
Yeah.
In one of our episodes, which is either in the future or in the past, I'm not sure which.
We'll find out.
You mentioned that you would risk having a night of romance with female Doc Ock. You would risk your life for that.
Right.
Would you eat fugu? Would you risk your life for the fugu?
I think that's probably where I would draw the line, is I'd eat that. But then, like, if someone was like, you can go and have the best meal of your life, but they're going to savagely murder you, at least with the fugu, I got a good shot. Like, I give myself 80% chance if it's a good chef. Now, if it's, not a sushi chef, if I look at the person and it's, a clown, for example, my need to eat fugu is going to drop drastically.
Okay.
Or if it's, you're like, hey, come over and let's eat some fugu. I'm making it myself. Yeah, no.
Maybe not. Maybe pass on that one.
I need some form of certification on that chef. But otherwise, yeah, I'll try that. I'll try it once.
Right. I love your sense of adventure, both sexually and culinarily. Jay.
Yeah, she has many arms, Paul.
Yeah, she does.
Think of the possibilities.
Yeah, maybe a younger me would have tried it, but old, kind of bitter me, I don't think I would do it. I'd be like, really? It's just like more problems for me. Like more arms, more problems. Like, what do I do with those arms? Where do I put my arm? Do I take it would be so in my head about it.
It becomes almost like an anti-aphrodisiac at that point for you.
Yeah. For someone like yourself, it just heightens the experience. It's like, this is awesome. Give me more arms, more danger.
It's different. It's weird. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been with the lady who was very tall.
Okay. That's as far as you've gone?
And her arms and legs, like, it did feel good because they can really wrap their arms and legs around you in a way that a smaller woman could not.
Right.
And it did feel good. I will admit it did feel good. So.
Right. I thought you were going to go like, I've been with a lady with 3 arms. And I was going to be like, well, we're not having a podcast today.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we can cut this out if it's not prevalent to the
No.
But a friend of mine,
it's germane to the conversation.
Yeah, a friend of mine was in the, I guess, outdoor sports business, and he was a rep for some store in Halifax, and he went to Montreal every year where there was like a convention for sales reps and things. They were selling wares. Nice. And there was a person in that scene who was this beautiful woman, but she was missing a hand and she had a hook for a hand. And like she became known as the hook girl because she was a smoking hot girl with a hook for a hand. And I was like,
girl. Wow.
Yeah. And then I was thinking to myself, would I do it? And then if you do it, do you do it hook on, hook off? And who takes the hook off? Do you take it off as
is it part of the ritual?
Yeah. What would you do? First of all, would you have single Jer? Sorry, we're in single Jer land here. Would you have sex with the beautiful one with a hook for a hand? Hook stays on or off, and do you take the hook off? How would you go?
Three-part question.
Yeah.
So, would I? Yeah, I'm not. Like I said with the Japanese food there, I'll try anything. Anything. If I'm willing to get it on with Dr. Octopus, I think a hook is probably the least of my, on the low end of that spectrum.
Right. So extra arms, no problem. Fewer hands, no problem. You're good with either number of hands.
A person's a person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and their souls are all the same, right?
Sure. Yeah. If you believe in souls. So if there's a legitimate interest and connection between the two of us, why am I? I'm not going to let a hook get in the way. Now, to answer the second question, that's a safety concern. So
yes,
if it's cool with both parties, yeah, leave it on. Why not? Let's live a little dangerously. But
you're a hook on guy.
Yeah,
I'm a hook off guy.
You're a hook off guy.
Take the hook off. Yeah,
you're kind of I'm learning a lot about you. Kind of a t-shirt on starfish kind of fella.
How dare you, sir?
No,
I do not wear a t-shirt on, and I am not a starfish.
No room for adventure, huh? All right.
Listen. Some things, it's not safe. But anyway, continue.
And as the hook part of the ritual, we can make it part of the ritual. I think we can. If both parties are consenting and cool with that, why the hell not? Mm-hmm. Why the hell not?
Okay, all right. I have run into a one-legged, beautiful woman in Nicaragua on a surfing retreat. She was smoking hot, one leg.
I've heard many a story start that way. So
really. Oh, okay. All right. So those are the sexual proclivities of myself and Jer as far as amputee sex goes.
Can we say that word anymore? Is that the word?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Limb challenged? Are we going to go with that?
Sure.
Don't cancel us, whoever's watching. Of the 3 people watching, please don't cancel us.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be weird if one of them actually was missing a hand?
Missing a hand, and they're like, I got a shot with Jer. Yeah.
All right. Back to the menu.
Speaking of losing limbs, back to the menu.
Yeah. So I don't think I have much more to say. Well, maybe I do.
Go ahead.
So if I feel like the genre of food movies is in its infancy at this point.
I thought it was dead.
You thought it was because you thought the chef killed it, right?
No, Burnt. I felt like
Burnt killed it, right?
Killed it,
right.
But then it just keeps crawling back like this. They just did this, and I think as long as there's cooking shows and Chef's Table and those competition shows, I just watched one where there's no host and they can vote each other out, and it's like, is this Survivor?
Jesus Christ!
With cooking. And how is this proving you're the best chef and not the biggest dick?
Because usually they're the same person. Usually, yeah. So I guess you're right. It is in its infancy. Well, I mean, of the I think I can count on one or both hands the number of legitimate food movies out there. You got Big Night, you got Chef, you got Burnt, you got The Menu. That's all I can really think of right now. As far as movies go, there's some shows and other things out there. There's content out there, but as far as 2-hour, we're talking movies.
Yeah, feature-length films.
1 to 2 hands worth of movies at this point.
I'm sure there are more. I'm sure there's there are some that just haven't been quite as popular, but there's Ramen Girl with Brittany Murphy. I think we talked about this when we were like coming up with this. Which is about Brittany Murphy goes to Japan and learns how to cook ramen.
Brittany Murphy. I don't think isn't she the one who died from Clueless?
She passed away. Yes, she was in Clueless and she was in Sin City.
But she made a movie about ramen. Okay.
She made a movie about ramen.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. All right.
Not a bad little film. It didn't really take off and didn't blow up as like a huge thing, but it was interesting nonetheless. I think it left me feeling good. Yeah, I've seen there are a few, but yes, I think to your point, yes, there aren't a ton.
I'm glad that these movies exist, and I'm glad they're moving culinary filmmaking ahead.
Yeah.
That much I'm glad about. So, without further ado, I guess we can get into the chronology if you're.
Yeah, I think we'll go through. I think we talked about we're going to go through it by course, just because isolating all the food is a nightmare. There are other instances of food, but for the main part, the movie is organized by course, so we will do it that way as well. It's similar to The Big Night, actually. I think it shares that kind of structure with The Big Night, except in The Big Night, no one gets murdered.
True. And I believe that was the second half of the film was more course-based. The first half was like prep for the courses.
And this is kind of the inverse.
Yeah, so The Menu, for those who have seen it, who have not seen it, I don't know, but whoever is listening to this, it's about a group of people who gather in a remote restaurant, a Michelin-starred restaurant, to have what's considered to be the best meal of their lives with this famous chef. They all show up by boat to this island. Should we go through the food in the boat, the initial food, or you just want to go straight to courses?
No, they had a little kind of appetizer there on the boat.
Right. So Tyler, who is, I'm not sure I think Margot is actually the protagonist of this movie.
I agree.
So Tyler is a young man who has brought Margot, his assumed girlfriend, actually a prostitute. We'll get into that later. And they're amongst the many people on this boat who are going to the island to experience this meal. Tyler is extremely excited about it. Doesn't seem to care too much about Margot. Bit of a jerk, if you ask me.
Kind of a dick.
And and they are served raw local oyster in a mignonette emulsion with lemon caviar and an oyster leaf. Mm-hmm. Lemon pearls are made with algae, which is pond scum. Is this a foreshadowing? Yeah, is this a foreshadowing to the events that will come? The pond scum comment.
Yeah, they're setting it up, right? That she could not care less about this because she is not part of this world. She jumps into the world to help, but as we learn later, she's more of someone who serves this world, right? And we see little glimpses of this when she sees the suit guys, like the investor guys, come on. She kind of has a look at them, and she's like, "Ooh, she might know one of them." Or she sees the old guy. She definitely knows him. We'll get there. So she's not part of this world. She's similar to that Russian fellow in Triangle of Sadness, in that he's a fish out of water in a lot of ways amongst the wealthy people. She just doesn't fit in. She's brought along for the ride, and as we learn shortly, she wasn't actually meant to be there.
True. I think she has more in common with the Instagram models from Triangle of Sadness in that the Russian guy at least can buy his way on the ship.
True.
She's the only one in this group who can't really access this kind of a meal for financial reasons, but her looks get her on board. So I think, as we mentioned in Triangle of Sadness, attractiveness is actually currency.
Currency.
And no matter what society you're living in. So
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
I would say you're right. Yeah, actually, she's the models.
And she's also kind of our avatar going in because we're kind of on her level. We
don't belong in this world.
I sure don't. Goddamn. Maybe one day, you know?
You never know.
What did you think about the food, though? What were your thoughts? Did you get a look at it?
So that first kind of thing is interesting. They make caviar. So when they say caviar, they don't mean traditional sturgeon caviar. They use I think they mention it later on, but they use a device that almost like it's like a bubble. It makes a little bubble, and it turns things like algae and lemon water and whatever the heck you want into like little pearls like caviar. I forget how it works, but it's a very, you see it on these cooking shows all the time, and I've seen them for sale too, where you could make caviar out of anything, and it basically encapsulates the caviar in almost like I want to say a condom, but it's like a tiny little pearl, and it's made out of sugar water or something that kind of holds it, at least until you bite it, and then it pops and gives you that burst of flavor. And then this is an oyster. I can't eat oysters. I used to love them. But so that's kind of the quintessential like food from the earth that you eat that they can't really perfect an oyster. An oyster is already perfect in and of itself. Like it has a great flavor profile. Those who love oysters swear by them. And I think in Burnt they say this, like, God gave us oysters and apples and we can't perfect that recipe, but it's our job to try, or whatever it was. So they're making that statement here of this guy has taken God's creation and made it elevated.
And what did you think of it? Did it look good to you? It looked weird to me. I didn't know what to make of it.
I mean, in the fact that it would put me on the toilet for a couple hours, it looked pretty good to me. Looked like a pretty damn good oyster, if you ask me.
Now, once they're on the island, the movie begins, and the plot is structured around these courses. So the first course, minute 15, the island plants. It's like almost a terrarium situation where they use plants and rocks from the island as the plating of the dish, which appears to be a scallop, and what else? The wine. You go ahead, and if you can read that, I'm not sure what that is.
This is we've missed the Amuse bouche, which they're served.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. We can cut back to that, but it's served as they kind of is the first dish served on the island. The Amuse bouche is kind of not ordered. This is usually when you go to one of these restaurants, they kind of throw it at you in the beginning, and you're like, ooh, a spoonful of cold tomato soup or something. And so the Amuse bouche is in your notes. Do we have it? Yeah, sorry, I'm just...
Amuse bouche, we have compressed pickled cucumber melon, milk, snow, and charred lace. Right, I don't even know what milk, snow, or charred lace is.
So this almost sounds like a very... If I'm, from my understanding of it, compressed pickled cucumber melon probably has a light, watery, sweet, sour flavor to it because it's pickled. And compressed I'm assuming would be it being kind of concentrated a bit more. And then milk snow seems to be like shaved ice milk or frozen milk, which would be very sweet. I think would have almost a sweet. And then charred lace, probably some sort of crunchy, crispy, textural thing that they put on it. If you look at the picture of it, it just looks like these little kind of blobby things. So it looked pretty nice, and they're putting it down with tweezers. But yeah, a nice little, it just basically wakes you up. It's cold. It's usually very refreshing. It usually has some sort of sweet, sour note to it to really get you salivating. And Amuse bouche is amuse, like amuse your mouth. It gets you kind of going.
Hello.
So, yeah.
I like that. What a nice phrase, though, amuse bouche.
Yeah.
It just sounds really nice to say.
It's French.
Do you have any thoughts? Yes, it is French. Do you have any thoughts about the first course with the scallops and the whole terrarium setup?
So yeah, the scallops with the terrarium is so it's a bunch of little plants, and then they put the scallop on top, and it's everything we just walked through on that tour. I think except for the smoked meat that comes a little later, but they see the guy getting the scallops out of the water, and I think Tyler says some jackass comment to him or something, or Leguizamo does or something, and then they see all the plants and all the stuff, and then they get in and they put it in the terrarium, and then they pair it with a wine. And these meals are always paired with wines. Usually you have to pay extra for the wine, but I'm assuming at $1,200 a head they're going to give you some wine.
I hope so.
And the wine that they serve it with, let me just pull up our notes just again so I could get it right. There are 3 wines that they kind of you actually see. There are more wines in it, but they don't really tell you what they are. But this first one is a Chassagne Montrachet, which is Caroline Moret 2014. Montrachet is in Côte de Beaune, France, which is Burgundy, which now I'm probably going to get a whole bunch of people or one person in the
It better be
comments
Burgundy,
saying,
man.
Yeah,
It better
say, oh, that's Bordeaux. No, it's a Burgundy wine. Montrachet is a white wine, so it's probably very kind of zesty. Premier Cru. So in French wine, they classify their wines by, table wine, and then there's like Premier Cru. I think there's a secondary Cru. There's Grand Cru, which is very good, but Premier Cru is like super high end. And they say that this comes from a lot of expensive wines are what are called single vineyard wines. And a Grand Cru or Premier Cru would probably be that in France. It means it comes from, the French are super specific about what they can call their wines. You can't call it Montrachet if it's not from the Montrachet AOC. And that's not the grape that goes into it. It's the I believe it's probably a Chardonnay.
Yeah, they're very territorial about wines and beverages in general.
Because the French believe that the land the wine is grown on is more important than the grape varietal they're using. So, and the best way to see this or to experience this is, if you want to nerd out on wine, get a California Chardonnay and then go and get a Chablis and drink them. Same grape, vastly different wines. And a lot of it has to do with the oak they're aging it in, but a lot of it has to do with the soil they're growing it in. If it's Burgundy, I think it's Burgundy does Chardonnay and Pinot. So those are the 2 most well-known grapes. So this could be some form of Chardonnay. It might be something else. Answer in the comments below. French wine is a very complicated beast, but yeah, probably a lively, very nice wine to go with that scallop and those vegetables there.
Okay. I'm a white wine guy. I love a nice crispy white wine, cold as heck. Just hits the spot to this guy.
Always on a nice summer day.
Any day. I just don't like the red. I think it's the temperature. I don't like the room temperature wine. I really like that sharp, white, crispy, smack you in the face white wine.
Hey,
I'm not sure why.
To each his own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at minute 21, the second course, very controversial amongst the guests in the dining room, the breadless bread plate. Did they go too far? Did the chef go too far and just stick his head way too far up his own butt on this one? It seems a bit overly pretentious, the breadless bread plate.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is when this kind of is that part in the movie when everything starts to turn, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just about to say, this is the first moment we realize this guy's a little kooky.
Yes. And then also the guests start vocalizing their displeasure at this point.
The stock guys give us the do you know who we are? And they're like, yeah, we know exactly who you are. That's our job. Which I thought was a great scene.
I really thought that This scene reminded me so much of the dinner scene in the Triangle of Sadness, in that the characters were so specific and very authentic to real life. I felt like the stock guys.
Yeah.
I know those guys. I've had
Yeah.
dinner with those guys. I think we all have, That's
Yeah.
what they're like.
I've
That's
seen those
exactly
guys.
what they're like.
If I could give one piece of advice to our listener out there, never, ever, no matter what, if the service is bad, or if someone does something you don't like, or if you're at an airport and you get bumped off a flight, don't go with the "Do you know who I am?"
Never.
Don't
Ever.
do it. You just look like such a putz.
I don't care if your dad is Tom Brady, Donald Trump, I don't care. Just don't say it. You're going to look bad. All right.
Yeah. Because if they knew who you were and they cared, you wouldn't be in this position. Either they don't know who you are or they don't care. They're just trying to do their job. And your identity has no bearing on that.
You're just declaring that you're a douche at that point.
Especially if you can't back it up. Right?
Yes.
If you're like, you know who I am, and then you walk away and then a minute later they're fired. Okay, then you backed it up. Ballsy. I get that. You're still a dick. But
the worst is, do you know who my dad is? Or do you know who I work for? Like, do you know who I'm associated with?
Yeah, which is what these yahoos are doing. They're like, you know who our boss is?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't care.
Yeah, don't care.
So I found that very funny, and I found that very true to life.
And I love the waitress, Elsa, I believe her name was.
Yeah.
I love a waitress who's like a samurai. She says a code,
Yeah.
And she whispers in the guy's ear.
Yeah, she doesn't care.
She says, "You will eat less than you desire and more than you deserve," and looks at him like a stone cold killer. Like, whoa, Elsa.
Yeah, I like a good as a young or middle-aged Jewish lad, almost middle-aged, getting there. I like going to a deli where they treat you like crap. Like it's great. So to go to a pretentious restaurant like this where they treat you like complete crap and you enjoy it and all the same is just great. It reminds me of going to a deli where they're just like, I don't care, sit down and order a sandwich, idiot. That's just it's my favorite thing.
The restaurants which treat you the worst, I think there's certain restaurants which the level of service as it decreases actually signifies how much better the food is. One genre I will say for sure is in Jamaican food.
Yeah.
If you go to a Jamaican food and they're nice to you, get the hell out of there.
It's not
that food's going to be terrible. No. They have to look at you like they want to kill you. That's the kind of place you want. Like,
yeah.
When you walk in there, they should be like, "What do you want? What?"
Yeah.
That's what a good Jamaican place should be.
I live near a restaurant called The Real Jerk, which is like a
The Real Jerk.
Yeah, it's a Toronto staple, Jamaican jerk chicken. It is.
Yeah.
And it's true. They're not the nicest. I think they're just they're indifferent.
Yeah.
But the food is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I used to go to Albert's down on Queen.
Yeah, Albert's is good too.
But before I went in there, I'd have to steel myself a little bit. It's like, I know this guy is going to hate my guts for coming in there, but the food was so good, I couldn't help it. I would get the stewed chicken with the rice and it was so delicious.
Yeah, it's flawless.
So breadless bread plate, I think he overextended himself creatively on that one.
But he's making a statement, and he's making a statement that is kind of the basis for everything he is now about to do. In that these people, the way he puts it to them is one way, but it's a double-sided coin, right? He says, I forget the exact line, but he basically says, bread is peasant food. You don't eat, you don't deserve to eat peasant food, which to him means these people are lower than pawn scum.
Oh.
But to them, it means, they take it as we're in the upper echelon, so we don't get bread. And then they start tasting the little accoutrement along the side. And Tyler's just loving every minute. He tries to take he keeps embarrassing himself in front of the chefs, which I think he thinks is going to get him out of the impending doom if he impresses them and he shows that he's super into it, which is just the neediest, most cloying character in the whole thing. But and then the food critic, we go to her character, and she says this little emulsion is broken, which we're going to see as the film progresses what the chef does with that. But it's like a little kind of side emulsion that they've made. And when something's broken, the most common example in cooking is a hollandaise sauce, where you'll see it like an oily film, and then the substance of whatever is broken. They're not connected. They're not emulsified together. They're not mixed properly. So this emulsion apparently is a little bit broken, which when she says that, apparently this chef can just hear everything. And he takes quite a bit of offense to that.
Speaking about broken emulsions, in Halifax, we have a dish called a donair, which is a regional dish. It's a spicy meat with a sweet kind of sauce on it. And the sweet sauce is called donair sauce.
It's
actually accidentally, sorry.
It's a very seminal sauce.
It's funny you should mention that, because there is actually a story to it. But the sauce, I accidentally, when I was working at a restaurant, broke the sauce and didn't even know I had broken it. I just thought I was supposed to stir it, but I broke it. Chef got mad at me. It was not a good day for old Polly when you break the donair sauce.
Then you break the donair sauce. Yeah, when I lived in Halifax, I never ate a donair.
Oh.
I didn't have one. I don't know. I would always go to Pizza Corner where they had King of Donair. Yeah. And I would always just get a slice of pizza because the pizza was so good there. There's a lot of good pizza in Halifax. Oddly good for pizza.
Strangely enough, yeah.
I'm not sure how they figured that, but they were like, we're going to make one hell of a pizza out here. But then I went back later and had a donair, and I was like, what the heck was I doing with the pizza? Like, this is where it's at.
It is, but it's also sort of like eating a cigarette.
Yeah.
It's tough on your system.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually you eat it with a cigarette too, which is...
Yeah. It's usually 2:00 in the morning. You came home from the bar, you're inebriated. And it's not a great drunk food because it's kind of tough to eat and remain clean. Pizza, you can just fold it up and boom, it's good. But a donair is a bit of a process. So
it's a whole shenanigan.
But it's funny you mentioned the seminal donair sauce. The high school I grew up around, there was a bitter rivalry between 3 to 4 pizza places that were all in that area.
Yeah. All
vying for the same customer base. One of them started a rumor that the other one, called Thornhill Pizza, by the way, they started a rumor that said that someone had contaminated the donair sauce with,
what it looks like.
Someone's unborn children, basically.
Yeah.
And it pretty much sunk that business. It really worked.
That was it, Someone, for lack of a better term, planted that seed in someone in the school. And then
I didn't want to say it, but you did.
It spread like wildfire. That's a brilliant marketing ploy.
Yeah, because it's true though. Like every time, like I would go there and I would think, no, I can't. Even if there's like a small chance, I just can't chance it.
Now the question becomes: before this happened, did you ever eat at this one location?
I actually didn't. I was loyal to another place.
Okay,
but that pretty much closed the door. I was like, no, I'm not going in there. F that. You
had no prior knowledge of how good their donair and pizza was.
No, not really. No.
So nothing lost.
Nothing lost
for you. For them, their livelihood. But
their livelihood, yeah. It got really weird. Actually, one pizza place got firebombed with a Molotov cocktail. It got real serious there for a while.
That's like Toronto with Harold the jewelry buyer,
or tow trucks.
Yeah, tow trucks as well.
Tow trucks are very dangerous too.
But Harold the jewelry buyer, allegedly, Harold, don't get mad at me, there was like some rivalry with a guy across the street, and then some shenanigans went down, and it escalated fast. Like, these jewelry people are not... Yeah. Do you remember Oliver Jewelers in Toronto?
Yeah.
The guy with the great commercials? Yeah. That guy got shot once.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff happens, eh?
The jewelry scene in Toronto seems to be a lot like the pizza scene around your high school. Like, it's a dangerous game you're playing.
Yeah, when you're dealing with people's livelihoods, it can escalate to a point, So watch out there, pizza proprietors and jewelry proprietors out there,
and tow truck drivers.
and tow truck drivers. I wanted to mention right now the retired couple who seem to be kind of just going there because they have money and it's there, basically.
Who've been there 11 times.
Yeah. The wife, Angela Bauer, who's the boss, Judith Light, is that's the actress.
I did not know that. That's fantastic. Great
I know.
show. Who was
look at that same face.
Who was the boss?
I gotta say, probably Tony.
Wow. But
I gotta say, probably Tony. Yeah.
Even though he was actually technically employed by Angela.
Yeah.
Making her the boss. Who's the boss? The answer to you believe Tony Danza was the boss.
Was the boss, yeah. I think so.
Bold.
I think if they ever did do it in the bedroom, I think he would have been the dominant one in that situation. Okay. Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Moving on. Oh, sorry. Do we want to mention, we kind of touched on the broken emulsion. Did you have any thoughts on the broken emulsion?
No, I don't know what the emulsion was, so I don't know much about it. Like all those little sauces that were, I guess, supposed to go with the bread. I'm not sure what they never really mention what they all are. But the broken emulsion comes up again and again in ludicrous ways.
Yeah, it was given to Mrs. Bloom, who I believe was the author.
Yeah, she was the food critic.
Food critic, yeah. So, there could be some symbolism there to how she is a broken person, or there's something going on there which I haven't figured out. But there's no, it's not a coincidence she was served a broken emulsion, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that this chef seems to plan things. So as she served more and more of this broken emulsion, and maybe it represents her, just her, what he despises about her. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, third course, things get real.
Really things represents.
Get real. Yeah. Third course is called Memory.
Yeah.
And there's a story about his upbringing and how his father choked his mother and stabbed him with some scissors.
With a phone cord, and then he stabbed the father with scissors? Or stabbed him with scissors, vice versa?
Yeah. And they smoked, they served this house smoked chicken thigh al pastor with the scissors. And
stabbed into it. On top of a coiled phone cord.
Yeah. That is dark.
Yeah.
That was dark, man.
And they're all kind of like, when they hear the story, they're like, okay, like this is, and
yeah,
it's funny. One of the things that, and as each meal keeps going, it's very funny to see what these people who have come, like each different character has a different reaction to this. Like Tyler is just willing to accept anything.
Tyler's a fanboy. He's into it. Yeah. He's like, let's go.
What's funny is we know he knows what's going on. We learn that later on. So we don't know it now. But we find out that he knows. But the food critic is also kind of this way.
Yeah.
Because
she's serious.
Her and her idiot friend there are kind of like, oh, this is a lot of theater. This is exciting. This is dark and and then some people who are not like the couple and Tyler's prostitute there, they're just like, what the, like, what?
Yeah. Poor Margot, man. Like, I feel bad for her. God, she seems, by the way, for a woman of the night, she seems like a lovely person.
Yeah, fantastic.
Charming, funny, smart. She seems great.
I'm going to assume that the majority of toots or prostitutes
I've never heard someone call them toots before. That's the first I've ever heard someone call them toots.
Or prosts, whatever. I was just trying to make it colloquial.
Sure.
I'm going to assume that they're all nice people.
I have no idea, but there's a YouTube channel that actually interviews prostitutes.
Okay. And are they mean?
No, they're all broken though. Like they all had terrible childhoods, which is no surprise, I guess.
Okay.
But
yeah,
they don't seem mean though. They seem just very kind of broken, but their interviews are fascinating. There was one they did with a French prostitute who worked at one, like the Bunny Ranch and things like that. This lady is one of the coolest human beings I've ever seen. Like, she does an hour interview. He doesn't even ask her a question. She starts talking about her life, and it is a movie, man. It is a freaking movie.
I can only imagine, right? Like, I can only imagine that their lives, there's a lot of intrigue. There's also probably a lot of, like, just really not great nights.
Well, there's levels. There's, like, the ones in the street, which is, like, the lowest level.
Yeah.
But then you get to the ones in the brothels, which is above that, which is
then
a bit more professional.
Escorts.
Then the high end we don't even know about. No one even talks about them, you know?
Yeah.
I go back and forth on whether I would ever, if I had the opportunity,
engage the services of a toot?
Of a high end, like a real professional, you know what I mean?
So you're not like a street level kind of.
No. Like I have respect for people who are extremely good at their jobs. And in that sense, I am a little bit intrigued. Like, what if there's one that's like $10,000 a night? Like, what does she do? I would want to know. I'm kind of interested.
And is it worth it?
Yeah. Like the one that took down Elliot Spitzer, I believe, she was a pretty expensive one. So.
I think so. Yeah, which is like kind of strange that she took him. Well, I mean, it's not strange, but I think 10 grand should buy you some level of discretion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, but maybe I'm just naive to the ins and outs of the
game. They call it the game.
The toot game. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, if I ever get a bag, I'll give it a shot and let you guys know. I'll report back. Yeah,
I agree.
So let's talk about the food, though.
Yes.
How did the food look to you?
The chicken. So this is a chicken taco.
Yeah.
And it was his signature dish. He alludes to that with the food critic. He says, "This has been my signature dish. It's kind of always on the menu." And we've just updated it this time for you specifically, as they've laser etched into the tortillas some incredibly personal information.
Yeah.
For each diner.
Yep.
Designed to kind of humiliate each diner, which is really interesting. So
this is sort of the scene in the movie where like the guy comes out with the brandy snifter and he's like, "I've assembled you all here today for various reasons. You did this, you did that." Yeah. Like there's that kind of scene. That's basically that's what's going on. So yeah. It
holds up a mirror to them. Like the stockbrokers are all seeing their fraud. The John Leguizamo is seeing that he's not a good actor. Great actor in real life. John Leguizamo.
Shout out to John Leguizamo.
Legend. Yeah. If you ever want to come on the podcast, please, John. We'd love to have you.
Love it.
Great guy. Although recently he's been talking a lot of stuff. I don't know.
God.
Whatever.
Another one. Come on.
No, not cancel-y stuff. Just
all
kind of just saying things. I don't know. He's just drumming up controversy. But the food critic, it's all the restaurants she's closed down over the years. And the old couple, it's him with other women.
Yeah.
And then Tyler, it's him having taken pictures of the food after they told him not to. Like, it's him being a total putz in the moment, which is great.
Yeah.
It's also just super disturbing. But great scene, interesting kind of interesting angle, and once again an elevated level, like an escalation to the the non-bread plate. Now he's kicking it up another notch. Like he's making them suffer a little bit more. The suffering is now beginning.
Yeah, I didn't see any tortilla damning evidence for Margot, the call girl, though, which is a good sign.
Yeah, well, this is also, we realize now, and he's started to hint at it. She's not so when they rock up at the island there, they're like, "This isn't who you wanted to bring,"
right?
And he was like, "Yeah, that fell through." So she's not supposed to be there, and it's bothering Ralph Fiennes, right? It's he can't figure out who she is. He knows that she doesn't deserve the fate that everyone else in the room deserves, and he doesn't know what to do about it.
So this is kind of a symbolic of that. Like everyone here is guilty of something except her. Basically, she's the innocent among these wolves, kind of.
Yeah. With this taco, they pair it with a Roscob Pinot Noir. Roscob is a kind of a big deal in Napa Valley, Sonoma County, Russian River Valley, in California wine. California wine is big for Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir has kind of been a big grape down there for a long time. Their biggest wines are Pinot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Chardonnay. Like those are the three kind of they are very similar to France because a lot of the grapes or the vines came from France, and then actually when France had a big problem with their vines, a lot of the vines that were then brought back to France and replanted were from California. So they share lineage, I guess is for lack of a better term. So a lot of those vines are actually have shared lineage with France. That's why Napa Valley and Sonoma County and other counties in California make great wine. Roscob is very famous. It's a 2013 wine, which, if I've done my research correctly, was when he was with a vineyard called Hirsch, which is a pretty big producer in California. Now he works with a vineyard called Furthermore, producing much of the similar wines. But Hirsch wines, they talk about the oak and the aging of the wine in oak, and Hirsch tended to do that. So it by wine nerd deduction, that would have been a Hirsch wine, a Roscob Hirsch wine. I could be wrong. That's just kind of guessing between me and things I also found on Reddit and reading on Wikipedia his career. A bit more interesting dude, big name in California wine. So this wine must be pretty fantastic.
Is there a wine community on Reddit?
Probably. There's an everything community on Reddit.
I would love that. I would love to see just the Reddit haters talking crap to each other about wine.
Yeah. The trolling is just almost incomprehensible.
Oh, God. That would be incredible.
It's not a Cabernet Sauvignon, you idiot.
Yeah, just call them, everyone's you noob. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And there's all these rules about how to comment. Oh, God. Reddit is well, it's actually kind of a nice place, but...
Reddit's fascinating when you want to find something out.
Reddit it's one of the weirdest places on the internet. It really is.
It's a perfect place for somebody like myself or Nasser or you just to go and get lost for a little while.
I used to be pretty heavy into it just because it was like this whole world I had never known about. But over the last couple of years, I've kind of not... the rest of the internet has kind of caught up as far as information goes. So I'll go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is just as good as Reddit now as far as good information.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Reddit's really good if you want facts from people that do not know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to get the facts from somebody that has no clue what the facts are, Reddit's a great place. But if you use it and then you cross-reference it with other things, you can get it's a good place to start, I find. Or it's a good place to find really obscure pornography.
Oh, really?
Probably.
Okay. My porn is pretty vanilla, as they call it. So Reddit doesn't really help
you don't
me out
play
that
in the
much.
obscure subgenres. Okay.
No, it's a little embarrassing how vanilla Here's the thing. I wish I could brag in job interviews. I wish I could show them my porn history to show how normal and nice I am as a person, because nothing exposes you like your porn history, right?
Right. Yeah. So you're with your porn, you're kind of a t-shirt on starfish kind of guy as well.
I'm just a very respectful guy with my porn. I like the women to be respected. I like everyone to be having a good time. I don't like anything weird, you know? But that's something I feel like I should be getting credit for that, but there's no situation where I could brag about that.
No, there's no benefit to enjoying. Yeah, unfortunately not.
Yeah, it's a real cross to bear.
It really levels the playing field for us depraved people.
Yeah. You guys, I don't want to get into what your search histories are or whatever, but all I'm saying is I'm proud of my search history on pornography, and if anyone wants to challenge me, I'll pull it up.
All right.
and pull it out.
Okay. Bold. Respect.
So now the tension is ratcheted up. Everyone realizes that there's going to be some trouble here. This guy is clearly deranged. They're all in some kind of danger, whether it's to their reputation or to themselves physically. Things are getting real right now. Minute 38, the fourth. Sorry, Justin.
No, I was just saying things are taking a turn for the worse.
Yes. So minute 38 is the fourth course, the mess. And it is a mess.
Young Jeremy.
Young Jer.
Shout out, fellow Jer.
Yep. Yep.
He just gets dressed down in front of these people. Like, called mediocre. Like,
is there anything worse to be called than mediocre?
Like, especially when, and what's funny, and I think what really this encapsulates is like, he's given his life for this in a lot of ways. Like, his whole life is, he's basically given everything to do this job. And then at that moment, he's told, nah, you're just mediocre.
You still ain't got it, kid.
Yeah, it's a mess, dude.
So he does kill himself, young Jeremy. Yeah. And then the food is served. Pressure-cooked vegetables, roasted fillet, potato confit, beef jus, bone marrow. Jus,
like me.
And bone marrow, yeah. Like Jer. And the wine is Domaine. That's French. You can pronounce that. Go ahead.
It's a Domaine Breton.
What? Are you serious? That's what it is.
I put no stank on that whatsoever. Domaine,
oh my god.
Domaine Breton.
That's better.
Is a what is Loire Valley is the wine region. So Loire Valley is known for Pinot Noir, gently Pinot Noir, as well as Sauvignon Blanc. But they also do some other interesting grapes there too. This is a biodynamic wine, which is kind of seeing a big surge in popularity all over the world. So it doesn't necessarily, the French don't necessarily, a lot of these biodynamic kind of experimental wines are coming into their own. Also natural wines are a big thing. There's a difference between biodynamic and natural, which one day we can get into. But basically, the French don't necessarily let this fall under the purview of their kind of structure of wine, their AOCs. So while this is a Loire Valley wine, it is not. It may not. They don't have to just grow. So if you're Loire Valley, you pretty much have to just grow Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, or Chardonnay maybe in some areas, depending on where you are. They can kind of do what they want, and they grow as a Cabernet Franc. So one of the most popular wines in the world, red, is Cabernet Sauvignon. That's Sauvignon grapes as well as Cabernet Franc grapes. Cab Franc is a very kind of old grape. It's one of the original grapes, the OG French grapes. We do very good Cabernet Franc in Canada. And so this is a big kind of earthy. They use barnyard as a descriptor, which is a very common descriptor for Pinot. And I don't know if I've ever heard Cab Franc describe barnyard, but there is a flavor you get or a smell you get from these wines that's kind of like old, leathery barn smell, which I think would pair nice with all these smoked meats, these meats that they're getting, that Jeremy's mess is. That's the last wine they mentioned, so the last time I'll talk for 20 minutes about wine.
Jeremy dies, but the wine was good.
Wine was good. And some people are really taken aback by the fact that they just watched a guy shoot himself. Some people, like Tyler, are eating the food, and now I think we're starting to realize what he knows and what he doesn't. And then the food critic's like, it's all theater, don't worry. Like, she's trying to deny what's happening, and some people are just like, I can't, you know, that's like, I'd lose my appetite if I saw that. Even if it was staged, I'd still be pretty messed up.
I will say, though, if there was a restaurant who put on some kind of dinner where it's half murder mystery, half culinary extravaganza, I might be up for that. I might be into it.
I think that could be $1 million idea.
Yeah. So Ralph Fiennes, the chef, is revealed himself to be completely unhinged.
Oh, yeah.
He has basically put blackmail material in front of all his guests except for Margot, the prostitute. God bless her. And now one of his sous chefs, I'm not sure if he was a sous chef. He was one of the line cooks, maybe. Jeremy. Kills himself in front of everybody. And the plot is on. The game is on. The caper is on. And he starts to reveal his frustrations with life, specifically with this type of person he's had to deal with his entire life. So this does seem to be a little bit of the working class kind of revenge story against the upper class, the people with the money, especially an artist, of which he believes he is. And he even tells, like, they're trying to figure out what's going on. And he tells them, think of yourselves as as ingredients in a degustation concept, a tasting concept. So he has now taken his role as chef and expanded it outward into the entire theater of what's going on. So and he calls out the people sitting there of why he doesn't like them, specifically the older couple who talks about, can you even name one of the dishes I've ever made? We tell you what they are every time. And he quizzes the guy. He loses. He says cod. No, it was halibut. So this man has had some bad feelings pent up for a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
And this shows that old guy wasn't even listening on the course prior, because he said, I serve this every time. The chicken taco thing. That's my signature dish. I serve this every time. So it just, I don't know, I picked up on that, but it just shows that the old guy didn't even care about that.
And it kind of does go to show you that the people who can afford these types of meals usually aren't too appreciative, or that they're doing it because they can.
Yeah.
As opposed to our guy, Tyler, who's a scumbag, by the way, but he at least appreciates what he's experiencing, even though he's a scumbag. So.
Yeah. He probably appreciates it almost too much. He's the antithesis to this old guy, in that he just, he wants to feel a part of this because it's so amazing to him. He wants to be seen as, and I think that's kind of an interesting commentary on foodie culture in general. I mean, I don't fanboy over chefs, but I fanboy over nice restaurants, and I try and go to nice restaurants, and I'll save up to go to nice restaurants and this, that, and the other.
You'll start a podcast about food.
I'll start a podcast about food, and I'll overanalyze food.
Yeah.
And so, I definitely fall into Tyler's camp. I don't think I go to that level, but I know what Tyler, I know what he's all about. Because I get excited. I don't, now if somebody's like, says some obscure method of cooking something, I'm like, oh, okay, does it taste good? Okay, let's do that. Like, I don't really, I haven't watched every episode of Chef's Table. I don't really like cooking shows, but I like,
except for Cinnamon Sandwiches on YouTube, which you love.
Love. I mean, that's more of a cooking experience. I prefer the experience, right? Good save, Jer. So yeah, like, I think there's levels of that. Tyler is on one very dark end of the spectrum, whereas this old man is literally just, he's eating, he's not tasting. Tyler's overly tasting and not eating. There's a happy medium there, which Margot kind of exists in that world.
Yeah, absolutely. I had something to say about Tyler, but I forgot it, so we're just going to move on.
Okay. My bad.
No, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself, Jer. I wouldn't live with myself if I thought you had any guilt about me forgetting what I was going to say.
Okay.
The sixth course, Man's Folly, Dungeness Crab. By the way, is there any more badass item on a menu than Dungeness Crab? That just sounds incredible. Do
you like crab? Do you eat crab?
I've eaten the soft shell, and I've eaten crab, mostly soft shell with sushi style.
Okay.
And then I've eaten crab before, I believe, in like crab cakes. I've eaten crab cakes.
Crab cakes?
I'm pro crab. I'll eat crab. Yeah, I like crab.
Yeah, like a big cake. like a giant king crab leg from Alaska. That might
I have
be
not had that. Have not had
okay.
that. No, no. I would though. I would though.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I like crab. I was actually talking about this with somebody else the other day. I like lobster and crab and stuff like that. Um, my favorite crab, the best crab that and it's not king crab, is Florida stone crab.
Oh, tell us more.
It's just the taste, the texture, the claws are fantastic.
Hmm.
Dungeness crab's good. That's a great uh, dish as well. I also like imitation crab.
I do too. I'm
Yeah,
one of the few. Yeah.
yeah, big
I
fan.
don't. I don't mind. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like it.
I love it.
I like it. So that's man's folly, and I believe this is where he's kind of after this course is when they all have to scatter
Yeah, the
because he's going to
men
hunt
run
them down and
away,
kill them. Yeah.
and the story behind this is interesting because that other sous chef, the female sous chef, comes out and she basically says that Ralph Fiennes' character sexually harassed her,
Yeah.
and then so this is him, 2 meals ago when he exposed everyone else. This is him exposing himself uh, in a way to them because he's in it with them, right? And we get that from when he says to Margot, you can either die with us, the servers, or die with them, the takers.
Yeah. It's similar to, I guess, it's kind of similar to Seven, and that everyone who dies is they're supposed to have committed a sin, some kind of they've committed some kind of crime against humanity, which makes the chef anyway feel that they deserve to die,
Right,
including himself. He's not without sin himself, and so
right.
he deserves to die as well. Margot, the prostitute, who, I mean, through society we think that she is the one who is her whole profession is sinful, turns out to be the virtuous one.
Yeah.
She's cool. Yeah.
She's done nothing wrong.
I like her. She's a cool chick. So if that's what high class prostitutes are like, I'm into it.
Yeah, she seems pretty down to earth.
Yeah, but the movies are famous for the hooker with a heart of gold trope, which I'm
Yeah,
not really buying. I don't think that's true.
I don't necessarily think she has a heart of gold because
Mm.
she's kind of like she'll
She's street
stand.
smart for
Yeah,
sure.
she's quick. She's no dummy.
Yeah.
But I don't think. Yeah, I don't know if she's she's better than everyone
In this group for sure.
in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, which I think is in and of itself is a trope for this type of movie.
Yeah. Because someone has to survive. They are giving a commentary on who dies and who lives. So
Yeah,
yeah. So that was Man's Folly, the Dungeness Crab. While they're all hiding in their hiding places, the one guy is hiding in the chicken coop, I believe.
yeah, which is fantastic.
And he served the Passard egg, which looked incredible. It
Yeah,
was the egg with the creme fraiche and the maple, and the presentation was amazing
it
in this
looked like
thing.
it had some caviar on top or something. I don't know. I don't know what that
Oh,
was. I love a good hard boiled egg, um,
yeah.
or soft boiled egg, or
Soft boiled. Soft
however
boiled
you want to
egg.
serve it. Yeah, soft boiled is
Yeah.
great. That's a great egg. Underrated
Yep.
egg. Um,
Most underrated egg. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. But yeah, he gets it as kind of a little prize. And it's funny, the men don't get to eat, but the women sit in and actually eat what looks like a very normal course that's served with a wine as well.
Yeah.
They don't mention what it is, but yeah, they seem to eat just a normal kind of course while they're waiting for the men, but they don't really get to finish it. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And then Tyler, the food nerd, Tyler, who brought Margot the prostitute, he gets called out, and the meal is called, I can't say it, but it's called Tyler's BS.
Yeah,
He challenges Tyler to cook something. He cooks undercooked lamb, inedible shallot leek butter sauce with an utter lack of cohesion, gets dressed down mercilessly by his hero, the chef, ends up killing himself via hanging. 2 suicides in one extravagant meal. 2 more than I'd like to see in a meal like this, frankly, but
yeah, I'd say that's an unsustainable amount of suicides per meal.
yeah.
I think it's interesting because he whispers something to Tyler, and it's funny that Jeremy's suicide a few scenes before, is a very open dressing down of Jeremy and how mediocre he is and how he's given his life for this passion and he's just never going to be very good at it. So he offs himself. Now, Tyler, he whispers something to him, which I think has to be along the lines of like, you're a complete and total fraud and I have no respect for you, which then causes him to go and hang himself in the other room because he's just so... He also has the benefit of knowing he's going to die anyway.
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty... Of suicides, I think that one's might be warranted. I mean, like, it might be a good decision at that point.
Yeah, I feel bad for anyone who's contemplating that, but I didn't feel bad for Tyler going through anything awful in this movie because he was just kind of... He treated Margot terribly. Like, he said awful... Like, from the get-go, he just criticized her, treated her horribly because he said he saw her as less. So, like, I don't know. He
kind of deserved it. He kind of deserved it.
He bugged me. Whereas if I flip over to John Leguizamo, like
Johnny Legs,
he didn't seem like a terrible dude. He was just a bad actor.
Yeah, I like John Leguizamo in this. He just seemed like a good dude. You know?
Yeah, he just kind of he didn't have much of a pivotal role, but he was there and he was interesting. But him and his friend there, I don't know if they were stupping or what, but
probably I don't think he'd be hanging around with her if they weren't.
They never really were on the same page the whole movie. Like there were things that they wouldn't tell each other, and they had weird chemistry.
Oh, did you see when the chef asked her where she went to school and she said Brown, and he asked her, "Did she have student loans?" and she said no. He says, "Oh, you're dying." I was like,
"Oh yeah."
Every 25-year-old in the theater, if they had saw that, was like, "Hell yeah, you're dying! Screw you, man."
She's the like nepo baby of the crew.
Yeah. You don't have student loans, you got to die, man. You're not one of us. At 121, there was the weird birthday cake with the claw-like candle setup.
Yeah, it was the guy's birthday, and for a second there, he was almost like, "Oh, thanks."
I know. He kind of felt good about it a little bit. Like, "It is my birthday. Thanks, man."
Which is awful. It's your birthday on the worst day ever.
But I was thinking about this, and Ralph Fiennes, the chef, was talking about how he feels so bad, and he calls himself, "I'm a whore," to these rich people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Secundo in Big Night, where he refuses to be a whore. Like, he talks about that what's going on in that restaurant is the rape of cuisine, and he's screaming about if
is it Primo or Secundo? I forget which.
Primo.
Primo's the cook. Secundo's
Primo's the cook.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he's screaming about the rape of cuisine. He's yelling at Secundo. He's saying, if I change my dishes, I die. Everything goes, you know what I mean? So it's like, I kind of felt the spiritual connection between these two chefs.
Yeah.
Primo refused to change himself for commerce. This guy did it, and you can see the consequences on his psychology. He really broke down and has created this whole mess here.
And we actually get when Margot escapes the area briefly before, not in the end, but when she escapes and finds where he lives, where Ralph Fiennes lives, and his secret little room and the radio. We learn a little bit more about his career and why he is the way he is. In which that then at the beginning of his career, he was just a burger chef.
Speaking of burgers, supplemental course, a cheeseburger, which Margot expertly, because she knows human psychology, from what we can tell, and she decides, okay, I think this guy's crazy, but he has rules about himself and about what he will and will not do. Orders a cheeseburger to go as a challenge to him to make just a good cheeseburger. None of this weird stuff, this invisible bread. Just make me a good cheeseburger. Can you do that? That's your challenge.
She calls him out. Like, she basically says to him, I don't care about any of this crap you're cooking now. It doesn't do it for me. I don't think it's very good. And to be quite honest, I'm still starving. Which is interesting because, and it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, when at a baseline level, food is meant to sustain, right? It's sustenance. It keeps you alive. So it doesn't necessarily need to be all this crap. It can be a cheeseburger. But if you're a good cook, your cheeseburger should be as transformational, transcendental, whatever word you want, as your scallop on a rock with flowers or whatever you're making, right? So she challenges him and says, can you do that for me? And then he's like, do you want crinkle cut fries with that? Which I think is great. Just like just the dark comedy elements here were very good.
Yeah, and I must say, the shots of the cheeseburger plated it was the best food porn of the movie as far as I'm concerned. It was incredible.
It looked really good. Double patty, American cheese. And he's like, as you know, American cheese is the best kind of cheese to use for a burger because it melts properly. I agree. And a grilled cheese sandwich. I only use single slices for that.
Oh, yeah. And the fries on the side, too.
Crinkle cut fries. That's a classic burger. High fat content. Beef. Maybe some brisket, bacon, whatever thrown in there. Who knows?
Yep.
Great looking burger. One thing we've kind of not mentioned is that, well, we mentioned it, but I just want to go back for a second and say that the emulsion that was broken that lady called out, every few courses, they keep bringing her a bigger pot full of broken emulsion until I think around before the cheeseburger or before one of the last course, she's actually given a vat of emulsion.
Do you think that is his way of expressing that she broke him, basically?
Yeah, I think so.
That's the reason he went off the deep end?
I think so. I think that I definitely. I think that's kind of a metaphor for their relationship.
Damn. Anyway, Margot takes the cheeseburger to go, which somehow triggers something in this guy's rule book in his head where he thinks that's okay. He lets her go, which thank God, because she deserves to go.
Yeah.
Everyone else dies spectacularly as human s'mores. In this giant fire.
Which was like kind of where my other brain, who was like, I want to hate this movie brain, was like, what the hell? Like, what is this? When they brought,
you think it was a bit much?
No, it was perfect. But when they brought out the mushroom, like when I thought they were going to be like wigs, like Canadian judicial wigs or whatever, when they brought the mushroom like shoulder pads and then the chocolate hat, and everyone's just kind of sitting with a bewildered look on their face, like what the heck is? And they're spreading graham cracker on the floor, like.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Midsummer, that Ari Aster movie about the cult in Sweden. Yeah. By the way, this is not just a murder mystery style food movie, but it's also a cult. It's in the cult horror, which is going on right now too. There's a lot of cult stuff popping up in horror movies these days. So.
When we go to the beginning, if we rewind all the way to the beginning, and the what's the lady, the
Elsa, the waitress?
Elsa, yeah. She's showing them the barracks where they all live.
Yeah, they're in a cult.
It's a cult. We live here. We devote our lives to this. And like even the yes, chef, like that. It's almost like, and I think, they're making a statement about this type of cuisine. The movie is making a statement about the love of this type of cuisine, about people like Tyler, about the people who are on the inside, the chefs, the sous chefs, the people that devote their lives to this. It is kind of cult-like. Like you follow this one messiah, this one brilliant chef, this, Gordon Ramsay type person.
Take a lot of crap from him, which you would not take in other jobs.
Yeah, because you believe so firmly that this is the key to your success, the key to your transcendence in the culinary world. That I think that's just a great statement they're making about this fine dining, this haute cuisine world, which, it didn't dawn on me until you said cult.
Yeah, there's like there's a trend popping up because I've read somewhere that horror movies kind of reflect the fears that are in the collective subconscious of society at that time. Right. So in the 80s, There's all those movies where the kids who had sex died and the ones who didn't stayed alive. That was a direct reflection of the paranoia from the AIDS crisis. You know? And then as things move forward, there's a lot of horror movies that have technology involved, reflecting our fear of technology kind of thing. And then now a lot of cult stuff coming up.
Ghost in the Machine. You remember that one where there was like a computer virus that was a ghost?
Oh, she was a hot android, though.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, you're right. This is cult-like, and I think that comes from, if I'm going to think about society, is, you look at the U.S. and Canada and a lot of other countries in the world. There's all these groups now.
Oh, yeah.
The Republicans, the Democrats.
The internet has created new cults.
Yeah, and it's almost cult-like, like the MAGA Republicans and the far left and the...
QAnon is a literal cult.
QAnon, the Proud Boys.
Proud Boys is a cult. Vegans are a cult now, for God's sakes.
Everything has some sort of...
CrossFit's a cult.
Cult-like thing. Foodies, why not?
Liver King, he started a cult.
Yeah. There's a whole... people who listen to Joe Rogan.
Rogan's got a cult.
People who listen to the Food and Movies podcast.
Well, if you look at social media... Don't kill yourselves out there. We want you to live. But if you look at social media influencers, what are their people called? They're called followers.
Followers,
right? You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
A lot of cults out there. Beyonce's got a cult. It's called the Beehive. If you say anything bad about Beyonce on social media, they will swarm on your ass. So
yeah,
Are you in a cult? I don't think I'm in a cult yet. I'd like to be.
Am I in a cult? No, I don't think so. I don't think I do. It seems like a lot of work.
Someone tried to recruit me into a self-help cult 10 years ago.
Nice.
It was a kind of like similar to Tony Robbins, but more organized. I forget what it was called.
A pyramid scheme, probably.
No, it wasn't an MLM cult. It was a self-help cult. You had to pay for, it was like Scientology. You had to pay for classes and stuff.
Yeah. Bit of a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, I didn't go, but they all seem so happy though,
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I don't disagree with the cult mentality. It's like, religion can be, you could say religion is a cult.
They were the first cults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You believe in something so fiercely that you're willing to, ignore.
You're willing to die for it, these people are.
Yeah, you're willing to drink the Kool-Aid. That's where that term comes from, right? The drink the Kool-Aid was, what, Jonestown? Or I forget.
Jonestown, yeah.
So these cults, people believe in something so... And you're right, the internet is generating this. So this is a bit of a commentary on society.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Heavy, man.
Heavy.
How messed up is that, like, in the drink the Kool-Aid is actually a term in corporate culture.
Yeah.
That's positive. It's supposed to be a positive thing. We need to get people to drink the Kool-Aid. Do you know what that means, people? It means you die. You die.
I don't necessarily... I think people use that wrong.
Of course they do. They knew what it meant.
I think you're right. I think they use it wrong because when I use it, I worked for an agency that will remain nameless because what I'm about to say isn't the nicest thing. But everyone who worked there kind of, we all were like, oh, you drinking? Or we would say it to each other. Like after a while, once you stopped drinking the Kool-Aid, you'd see new people come in and you'd be like, oh yeah, they're right on that Kool-Aid. They're drinking that hard. Because it was, the agency had these little perks that they would just give you to kind of, and they stole their culture from tech. This agency.
Tech has got some startup cults for sure.
Yeah. So they have that startup mentality, which advertising stole from tech. And this was one of the first agencies I'd ever encountered that did it. Because, I mean, let's be real. Anderson was not stealing much from tech. And that I actually mean that as a positive thing.
Okay.
But this other agency, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
They steal from tech. Yeah. And people drank the Kool-Aid and used the term correctly there. But I do think you're right. Like, we want to get people drinking the Kool-Aid. That's a messed up thing to say about.
It's messed up, man. I worked at a bank once, and in the head office in the marketing department, and when you're part of your employee package, where they give you a little pin with the bank logo that you can wear on your lapel, and you could tell who's drinking the Kool-Aid by the people who actually wore the pin and the ones who didn't. Yeah.
Lapel pins are a great way to show you drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, or you're just a sociopath and you want people to think that you drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea.
There was a couple of those walking around too.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's where I fall in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Oh man, that was all the food in the menu. God damn it! Let's do some food awards, Jer. Let's go, baby.
What a culinary experience! Even watching it was a culinary experience.
It was a roller coaster, man.
The food was beautiful. I mean, it was
immaculate.
I liked how it was kind of so over the top. It was almost a parody of these restaurants, but it was also, but they kept true to it. Like, they didn't, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't make it comical. They didn't lampoon it, but they did keep true. But it was almost like he's serving the scallop on a rock or the thing on a phone cord, and he would come in with that disturbing story. It was just, I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and I came away from it like just feeling like this was kind of, I wouldn't say it's a refreshing movie because we've named 3 or 4 movies like it, but I wouldn't say it was a bad movie. I thought it was highly entertaining. So food awards, what are the food awards? Best use of food.
I think it has to be, well, use of food has got to be the tortillas with the blackmail material on them. My personal favorite though is the burger. That was incredible. Yeah.
I think as a story device, I think the best use of food, you're right, is the burger. Although I do, if I'm going to be different from you, I would give the award to Jeremy's Mess. Not because of my name, but because that is when Jeremy puts that gun in his mouth, that is the exact moment when everyone realizes this is high stakes. No pun intended.
All right. Jeremy's Mess. That was a good one. Who would you most like to have dinner with in this movie?
I feel like I'm going to take yours.
Probably. You usually do.
So I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say one person who I would really like to have dinner with. Right. I would like to have dinner with, is it Elsa?
The waitress?
Yeah. I'd like to have dinner with her. I'd like to get in her mind, see why she is the way she is, what makes her tick. Because she's fun. She's serious to the point of being very, very funny. Yes.
And also, you kind of know she can kill somebody.
Yeah, she's dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous. Which I think you're into a little bit, I'm going to say.
Right.
Maybe?
So now it's a new theme. It's no longer father figures. It's dangerous women.
No. I'm just saying, I'm noticing different themes in your personality as far as people you're attracted to for different reasons. So,
okay. All right.
Listen, I'm no psychoanalyst here. I could be dead wrong.
All right. I'm feeling psychoanalyzed.
Oh, I don't want you to feel attacked. That's what.
Oh, no, not attacked. Just psychoanalyzed.
Oh, well, I'll just keep doing it though, because it kind of, I like making you feel uncomfortable.
Good.
Here's the thing. It's real hard to choose between Leguizamo and Margot.
Okay.
Because they're both going to have incredible stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I would enjoy hanging out with Margot more.
That is who I...
Because she's got that street toughness, which I like.
100% who I thought you would pick.
Yeah.
Also following a bit of a theme with you.
Mm-hmm.
Leguizamo's interesting, though. Why? I didn't find
the stories. Like, he's been in the entertainment business forever. He must have so many stories.
Yeah, I just found he was the only character that wasn't, and not because of his performance. I think he's a great actor, great performance. I just think the character, even his girlfriend or wife or whoever that was, had a little more depth. He was very and he died because he just made one bad movie.
Yeah, it's a stretch with Johnny Legs. They should have let him live.
Yeah, it just seemed like, and he didn't seem like a bad dude.
No, he seemed like
He
a
seemed
good
like
dude.
a nice enough guy. He was a bit of a liar.
They all are in Hollywood. What are we talking about?
But
That's what you do professionally over there.
If he had one cardinal sin that made him deserve to die, like if we're going the 7 route, and everyone in the room had committed some sort of sin, his was, lying, deceit.
All right, so soft crimes for Johnny Legs. I don't approve. I think he should live. But final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Great film. I wanted to hate it. I did. I truly tried to. I couldn't. It's just well shot, well acted, interesting direction. I like Ralph Fiennes. I don't think that guy's ever really made a dud. And I just thought it was an interesting story, and to your point, very current with the times.
Yeah. I pretty much said all I have to say. But one thing I will say is that I really enjoy food movies, and I hope we get more in different genres. And just, I might have to write one and make it, but I'm very pro food movie, and I continue to be, and I continue to support culinary filmmaking.
I think this is
a good thing.
I think this is the first. Hannibal had some food, but I wouldn't say, Silence of the Lambs or any Hannibal films. I wouldn't say those are necessarily food movies. Those are more cannibal movies. But this is the first of its kind in that it's a food horror.
Yeah.
Dark comedy.
Yes.
So interesting. And so what do you rate this? Well, let's do our ratings. What do you rate this as a movie? What do you rate this as a food movie?
As a movie, I have to go with 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 scissors to the thigh, the chicken thigh.
Yeah.
As a food movie, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. It's got to be 5 out of 5 juicy cheeseburgers.
Juicy cheeseburgers. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, okay, so for me as a movie, I'm going to go 4 out of 5 suicidal sous chefs.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a food movie, I'm also going to go 5 out of 5 alcoholic mothers. Who is a character we totally glossed over, but one of my favorite characters in the whole movie. His mother sitting there just drinking.
There was so many characters that were good that we could. Yeah, we're already 2 hours in.
We could spend a lot of time on both, so we won't.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a Food Movies podcast for The Menu, and we will see you all later.
All right, Auf Wiedersehen.
Good job, Jer.
Well played, sir.
Love it.